everybody, welcome back to my craft room. Before I get into this video, the first thing I have got to say is thank you so much for 10,000 subscribers here on YouTube. That is super exciting. What a milestone. I love cosplay, I love making crafting content, and I just really enjoy doing it, so happy to be here. Happy to see that other people are enjoying it as well. It's time to get into the next build, and you know her, you love her. It's Jinx from Arcane. Here's a weird thing I've seen about Arcane cosplays and like Jinx in general. People will say, oh, well, it's too popular, so you shouldn't do it. Or, train's already left the station, the Arcane hype has died down. Not for me, baby. Arcane train's still going strong. It's a good series, and you should never let a character being popular or unpopular stop you from cosplaying them if you like the design and you want to make it. And I want to make Jinx. I think Jinx is going to be a relatively simple cosplay compared to Fallon, and I would like something kind of in between Fallon and my next larger build as kind of a palette cleanser, something a little bit easier, something to maybe practice skills on, and I think Jinx is going to be perfect for that. Pretty quick, pretty simple, pretty low profile for navigating conventions. I keep building things that are hard to walk around in, so having something that is meant to be kind of run around in is gonna be great. Things I have already done. I've already 3D printed out pieces of her gun. I found a file on Thingiverse, and I've already gathered up all of my fabrics. So we're gonna start with the pants, because I think they're gonna be pretty simple. For the pants, I am using this Orchid neoprene. It's stretchy, it's really thick. I think it's gonna look great with an Arcane cosplay, and I'm going to paint it to make it match her stripes. I think this is really like a little too bright, so I think I'm gonna mess around with maybe some like coffee staining to see if I can make it a little darker. And I also did get an airbrush for Christmas, so I'm gonna be playing around with that too, and I'm very excited. So, some pants. Recognize these? I actually had to remake my Fallon pants completely because I made them too small the first time, and that's on me. I didn't do a mock-up. So I had to take them apart and I made the pattern bigger. So I just kept this because the legging pattern worked just fine. It just doesn't fit when I have a fake butt on, if you can believe it. So I'm just gonna use this and cut out my Jinx pants. The nice thing about the Jinx pants is they're a little bit shorter, and like her hem is very jagged, and like, do you think they have finished edges in Zon? No, I don't think so. So I will not be doing that. This is not a competition piece, which means I get to think around. If this were a competition piece, I think these would be amazing to make out of dyed denim. I think that would be a 10 out of 10 material to use for Jinx pants. But like I said, palette cleanser. I'm not trying to learn how to make a pair of jeans right this second. Maybe someday though. This is gonna be a pretty simple pair of just like 2-piece leggings. So there's gonna be a seam down the inside of the legs and then the front and back. Leggings are a great thing to start with if you're like sewing or patterning for the first time. A weapon of choice, the rotary cutter. And we just cut them out. Well done. Look at that. Pants. Now I need to pick a right side and a wrong side for this fabric because I am going to add the stripes. And for the stripes, you may already know, it is the Tulip fabric spray paint. I use this stuff all the time. I need to go find my masking tape, and then it's off to the garage to paint. I realized if I want to coffee stain this, I should probably test and see if this is actually stainable because it is a synthetic fabric, so it won't dye easily. That would require me boiling a lot of water. So I just want to see if this will work. I don't have any instant coffee, but if this works, I will go get some. So I'm just gonna make a cup of coffee. I will only use a little bit of this and then drink the rest in the morning as an iced coffee. Don't worry, I'm not just gonna waste an espresso pod. Take this. I should have brewed this in a more sensible container. Don't mind the noise. My husband is putting together a cabinet upstairs. Oh, great. And now we just kind of give it a little dunk. I don't know. I'll leave that. Maybe overnight? Is that excessive? I don't know. We'll leave it overnight and see what happens. Good morning. Here's my little experiment. Let's see how it went. I forgot to hit record, but rinsed it out. So far, I don't know if that really did anything. Just wait for it to dry and kind of see. All right, here's my little coffee test piece. You ready for the big reveal? Nothing. And now it just smells like old coffee. Yuck! Which, like, I anticipated was going to be the case. You know, like, it's a synthetic fabric. Normally, in this situation, I would just dye it. I am a very confident synthetics dyer. Don't get it twisted. However, I'm worried that it would impact the stretch and longevity of this fabric, that it would just break down the elastic in it essentially. So instead, I'm going to use my old pal Jacquard textile color. I used this on Aloy. It worked fantastic. So I have just mixed up a little bit of this in a spray bottle with some water to dilute it, and I already did a test, and look at that. Much better, a much better color. Still the same color, just muted with the brown, and I think that's gonna work a lot better. So all I really have to do, and I should lay down some papers for this, is just give a little squirt, and then we can tape off and spray the purple. I did cut out a little piece of neoprene for one of Jinx's arm warmers, so that's what you'll see me demonstrating the painting on because it's small. And the painting was really fun. I just sprayed it down with my water and fabric paint mix, and since neoprene takes a while to dry, I used a hairdryer to speed the process along. Look at that, what a difference! I built up the paint in layers and tried to make it splotchier as I went to kind of pre-weather my fabric. I wanted a nice mottled look. Then I used some blue masking tape to mask off the stripes for both the arm warmer and the pants. I didn't measure or even attempt to make these stripes space out evenly because it's not even in the show. And then these pieces got a coat of purple paint. I didn't try to be super even with the paint either, I kept it splotchy. But those tape lines kept everything super crisp. Not done with the stripes yet. I'm using some matte gold heat transfer vinyl. Usually you would use this in a vinyl cutter to cut out a design, and I could do that, but Fortiche, the animation studio that made Arcane, said that there are no straight lines or symmetry in Arcane, just the hex crystals. So I'm hand cutting out all of these stripes, making them essentially as thin as I can. Then to apply the HTV, you put the shiny side down and then press it on with a medium-low iron temperature. All of these little vinyl noodles got applied to the edges of each stripe. The HTV has a coating on it that I carefully removed with an X-Acto knife. I liked this part. It was a lot of fun. And there are all my pretty stripes. And then it was just a matter of stitching the pants together. Finally! I added a quick and easy elastic waistband in a casing that will get covered up later. I put the pants on and marked on my shins where I was going to cut the jagged edges of the pants. I kept a reference in front of me while I drew out where I wanted to cut. And neoprene doesn't fray, so no need to worry about finishing the seams. Very cute so far. She's got a bunch of extra fabric nonsense on the waistband, so I'm using this muslin from my stash and drawing the shape I want directly on my body. I gave the shape a generous seam allowance and then cut it out twice. Then I pinned those two pieces together and sewed them up, leaving a little bit unsewn so I could flip the piece inside out to hide those raw edges. Then I ironed it to get rid of the wrinkles and to prepare it for the next step. More fabric painting. I gave it an initial mottling with the same fabric paint in a spray bottle that I did for the pants, and then masked off more stripes. Jinx is just a stripes girly. And then more paint, keeping it pretty uneven and messy. I really like these stripes. They feel very true to Zon to me. And that just got attached to the inside of the waistband so it folds over the top. The next thing on her waistband is this half circle of fabric, and I'm just gonna bias bind it with this Yaya Han matte gold spandex since it matches the vinyl perfectly. Of course, remembering to muddy it up a little bit with paint first. Since this is just one layer, I sewed on the initial bias tape a 1/4 inch away from the edge, folded it down super tight, and then stitched in the ditch to secure it down. The spandex also doesn't fray, so I just trimmed away the excess. That also got sewn down to the waistband. And we got some pants. I really like how they came out. I think they fit really well. I think the neoprene was a good decision. Really love how the gold vinyl looks. And the painting was a lot of fun. So far this cosplay has been pretty straightforward. And now it's time to start tackling the shirt. For the shirt, I'm gonna be using this kind of stretch matte rubberized spandex. I got it from Joann's. Rest in peace. This is the Yaya Han fabric. I know Wyla.com carries some of the Yaya fabric. I don't know if this is going to be on there. I hope so. Between this and the matte gold spandex, that's my bread and butter. I love it. I got plenty and I used a gift card on it, so that was great. I think the shirt might be a little bit deceptive, so I don't know. Guess we'll see. The first thing for the shirt was making a pattern, and I happen to have a bikini top that is a decently similar shape to Jinx's, so I traced it out on some paper for my base pattern and then cut it out on some regular black spandex for a lining as well as my matte black spandex and checked the fit periodically on my mannequin. I put the pieces right sides together and clipped around the edges, and I didn't use pins because the rubberized spandex won't self-heal like regular fabric, and then I stitched up the sides and the top. I used a Teflon foot here to minimize the sticking, but I switched to a walking foot, which you will see later. I cut out a long strip from my matte spandex and used it to give my top a nice, thick, bias-bound edge. And there's that walking foot. It has feed dogs on the top to help get the especially tricky fabrics through the machine evenly. It's a great foot to have for your machine. Then I made a bottom band for the top using an old belt as a guide for the size. I marked and cut out some 1-inch wide strips and folded over the edges to make my belt loops. I placed them every 3 inches along the band and lined it with some regular spandex. Then the serger made everything nice and secure. It's the end of the night. I'm checking in, and I was correct. This is a lot more difficult than I anticipated it would be. I anticipated it would be difficult. It's deceptive for such a little top. So we got the front. Patterning this was kind of difficult just to try and make this shape over my chest in a way that I'm not gonna blah. Definitely gonna have to get creative with the undergarments on this one. I got the little bottom band all done. And then next I just gotta work on the back, which should be pretty easy. It's like a triangle and then it's got some strap situations. Overall trickier than the pants, but I think I'm gonna finish it much faster than the pants because there's a lot less fiddly details. I haven't worried about the grommets in the front yet. I figure I'll do that once it's actually finished so I can mark on me where I want them to sit. But yeah, I really like how this fabric looks. It smells really bad because all stretch pleather smells awful. I don't know, Canon Jinx scent probably. I eyeballed the little triangle piece for the back and extended the top of it so I could wrap it around the ring I'm using for the straps. And then I just stitched it up. Then I sewed the front and back of the top to the belt loops band. I also sewed in some really simple shoulder straps, and I'm using these gold rings. Not 100% accurate, but I don't think a 3D print would be tough enough, and this is in the back, so yeah. I measured out where these needed to go and sewed them down. Okay, so we've got a Jinx top. Fits pretty good. This part does not look great. But yeah, the belt hides a not insignificant level of jank. But it feels pretty secure. I don't feel like I'm gonna go anywhere in it. Also, here's the back. I like the back. I think the back looks good. Still not totally done. I need to mark out where I want my eyelets to sit. And then she also has kind of a little choker neck situation going on right here as well. So I'll just do that, and then the top is pretty much done. I took some tailor's chalk and marked out the top where I wanted the grommets to go. I cut a teeny little hole in the spandex and stretched it around the grommet, and then I just smacked it into place.
So I was going to try and sculpt on top of these with Warbler, but that turned out to not look very nice and be kind of ugly. But I wanted to do that so they were less round, a little more arcane. But since that didn't go so well, I've decided instead I'm just going to smack the hell out of them. Just make them look worse. On purpose. There. Excellent.
I feel better. I used some black acrylic paint and gave the grommets a nice splotchy coat to make them look a little older and to take down the shine. For the ties around the grommets, I took some white stretch fabric and, you guessed it, gave it a spritz with paint to make it look grimy. I sewed them into a tube to hide the raw edges and then used a safety pin to loop them through the grommets. The choker piece was super easy. I just sewed a tube of spandex, and then to turn it around, I took a nice wide water bottle straw and then slid the tube onto it, and then I poked a chopstick into the hole and used that to turn the tube right side out. I sewed one end to the shirt and then used a snap to secure the other end of it around my neck. Oh, we got a top. We got a top. It was dicey there for a second. I wasn't sure if I was gonna like it, but I do like it. Like I said before, it has not escaped its fair share of jank. It's a cosplay after all, but it feels secure, it feels good. Now I just gotta tackle all the belt stuff. For that, this is one of my husband's old belts that he didn't want anymore, so I get to cannibalize that for a cosplay. And I also have this old belt buckle that I'm going to try and attach, but it's a weird attachment. I had to take out itty bitty little screws, and then this slides out. I have not encountered a belt buckle like this before. But I happened to get a leather working kit for Christmas, so I think this is a good way to kind of dip my toes in to working with leather. The rest of the cosplay is probably going to use pleather because I already have it, and leather's expensive. I learned. I mean, I knew leather was going to be expensive. I did not think it was going to be $25 a square foot expensive. Horrifying. They assured me there will be a sale soon. Oh, this is irrelevant to the video. Whatever. I used the cut off chunk of belt that was in the belt buckle as a template and just cut away the excess.
Leatherwork. Yes! A little bit. I don't know if this belt is real leather. Is it?
Is that mine?
Yeah. I don't know. You gave it to me.
Right? Oh, okay.
This, you harvested the belt buckle off of it and then gave me the belt.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I have no idea, dude. It looks like not leather to me. But...
Yeah, it's probably not leather.
Mystery solved. 100% PU. Anyway, back to belt surgery. I used an awl to poke some little guide holes and then a leather punch to make the holes in the belt. Then I slipped the belt into the belt buckle to make sure the holes were in the correct position. This belt buckle needs to be gold, so I used some rub and buff and burnished it in with a scrap of old t-shirt. This is really the best paint, and a little goes a long way. I kept the coat thin to let some of the black peek through to keep it looking tarnished. I screwed in all those teeny little screws to connect the belt and the buckle, and now the belt is ready to get resized. I used my awl to mark out some new hole placements and then cut off the excess belt. I'll save it for all of her other belts later. I also cut the tip of the belt into a point and punched my new belt holes. The belt is too brown, so I'm using some fabric paint and acrylic paint to give it some more dimension and texture. And as a final detail on the belt, I glued on this gold painted scrap of belt to the end. Now that the top and pants are done, I need a little break from sewing. The only things I really have left to sew are the gloves, but after doing the top and the pants, I need a little break from sewing on this one. So I am just gonna jump into the shoes. And these are my base shoes. Very jinxy, as you can see. There's a place near me that sells like damaged shipments. So you can usually get things that are super cheap. That is where I tend to get a lot of my shoes. Yeah, if you have a place near you that sells stuff like Amazon returns or damaged shipments, great place for a lot of like weird cosplay supplies. These were $8. This strap, I'll just need to unpick it, but I think I can just reuse these gems for something else. Pretty basic combat boots that I can just add on to and make permanently into a Jinx shoe. And then to paint the shoes, I have some Angelus leather paint in brown, which is really kind of the best thing to use for painting shoes, so we'll get going on these. Step 1 was just seam ripping off the wraparound strap on the boots and removing the laces so I could prep for paint. But as a side quest, I did cut the stitches on the gems and take them off the strap. Those get put into the drawer of embellishments, and you mark my words, they're gonna make an appearance one day. And now it's boot painting time. I took a brush and my leather paint and just went for it. I did 2 coats. Then to make the patterns for the toes of the boots, I put some masking tape on the shoe, but clearly, I should have let the paint dry more. Whoopsies! It's fine, it's nothing a little more paint can't fix. I transferred my tape patterns onto 2mm craft foam and cut them out. Some pieces, like on the back of the heels, I was able to just eyeball without making a tape pattern, which was good for my paint. And with all the foam shapes for the heels and toes cut out, I took some tinfoil and crumpled it up. And then I had to carefully wrestle it open because I'm going to use this to create a hammered metal texture on the foam pieces. Taking my foam piece, I laid the foil over it and then went in with a hot iron and a lot of pressure to stamp that texture into the foam. Then immediately held it onto the boot as it cooled to set the curved shape. Also, you can see my very competent patch job. There, it's fine. It's weathering and it's gonna get covered. Then I sponged on some Flex Bond to try and keep everything textured since I didn't want it self-leveling away the aluminum foil stamped into the foam. I used metallic leather paint on the foam since the leather paint will flex with the foam and be less prone to cracking than something like acrylic or spray paint. And now to add the rivet details. You can totally do this with painted googly eyes, but I quite like how a nice metal rivet looks, so I just punched holes in my pieces and hammered in the rivets. Now it's time to glue the foam onto the shoe. I laid my pieces on and used some tailor's chalk to mark around them so I would have a guide for myself for where to put the glue. Then out to the garage to use the contact cement. I used a brush for more precise application. Contact cement gets applied to both pieces, then you wait for it to dry down matte and then stick them together. Remember to wear gloves and use it in a well-ventilated area. And look at that! Turned out super cool, and it should stay pretty flexible with my feet in the boots. Next was adding all of the floppy parts of the boots, so I started by folding down the tongue that luckily had a little bit of leather on it and then sewing that in place. I measured around the top of the boot and used it to make a pattern. It's just a trapezoid and a rectangle stacked on top of each other. I have some brown leather-looking vinyl in my stash, so I cut out my pattern pieces 4 times and I sewed 2 of them right sides together to make a pocket. And inside the pocket goes a piece of 2mm craft foam to add structure. I top stitched the leather and foam together to hold it in place and to match the reference. To attach the cuff to the boot, I folded the bottom rectangle to sit inside the boot and used sewing clips to hold it in place. You've heard me say on this channel before that I don't trust glue, and I still don't. So I used a curved needle and sewed the cuff and boots together. I just made sure not to go over the zipper so I can still use it to get my foot in and out of the boots. The cuffs have some hardware on the corners, so I made little strips and poked a hole into the center of each strip. Inside the hole, I added these small studs that screw together so they're pretty secure. Then I added a dangling gold D-ring and they all got hammered into the cuff with a stud. The boots are actually quite a bit darker than the cuffs, but that's no problem that some black leather paint can't fix. I dry brushed it on and feathered it out and went around my foam pieces to add some shading. Here's the before and after. Nice and gross. Looks like I've been traipsing through a nasty, nasty undercity. Almost done! I just needed to add the boot lacing. For that, I got some pink shoelaces, a long pair for the actual laces, and then a shorter pair for the stitching. I cut some holes into the sides of the boots and laced some X's on the side. And once I added the boot laces themselves, they were done!
And that is what I have on Jinx so far. You'll notice I'm wearing what I have currently done of my wig, but that's gonna be in the next video. I gotta keep you coming back somehow. So, wig is next video, subscribe so you don't miss it. So far, I'm really happy with how this cosplay is turning out. I think the top is really fun. I like the belt. I'm glad I was able to upcycle some things. I think my favorite part is probably the pants. Like, you can see how structured they are even without any legs in them. I think neoprene was a great choice. I really like the vinyl. I love my little fabric painting. And then the shoes were really fun as well. I am a big fan of like the X's and the little, I just love it all. I think this is a really fun design and I'm really having a good time making it. So like I said, coming up next is the wig, and then after that we're gonna cover all the accessories and then weathering all these pieces because this looks great. It needs to be more forticed. So like I said, subscribe if you don't want to miss the next video. If you want to see what I'm working on right now, you can find me on Instagram at Oneemilys, and you can also find me on TikTok. Once again, thank you so much for 10,000 subscribers, and with that, I'll see you next time where we tackle this beauty. All right, bye!